Oh, you muted.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Gray Area here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network. I'm Mr. Bennett with my partner, as always,
This is Sparta!
the Goats of Sparta,
Oh,
aka Peter, aka Paniotis. Yasu, my brother, what is going on?
What is going on, everybody? How we are doing tonight? Give us a few minutes. Our guest is having a little difficult. Do me a favor, Paul. Put the link in the chat just in
Yep.
case for him, and I'll
Will
let him
do.
know right now. Actually. So, how was your weekend, Paul?
Weekend's pretty good. So this is the last day of age 55. I turn 56 tomorrow. I thank God for that. It's not a sad ending. It's actually, I feel like I've won the game. I've cleared the stage. All right, so you're gonna have to come up with a sound effect for when you clear a stage and you go to the next one. So it's been a great year. Certainly looking forward to the following year and just hitting the ground running. So feeling pretty good. Spent the afternoon with my family, and it's good when you have adult daughters who'll be like, "Nah, Dad, we got the check." So it's always good when we have that kind of interaction. So they took care of me today, and again, feeling pretty good overall. But yeah, if Loss, if you're in the back, if you could share that link, because I unfortunately at this point I don't have admin rights.
He already dropped the link in there.
Okay, cool.
I just messaged Joe. So hopefully he sees my message in a minute.
Gotcha. Yeah, so certainly looking forward to very much to tonight's show, but certainly I'm going to ask, certainly as you come in tonight, make sure you hit the like button as you come in. Not only here, but go over to the Sparta HQ Network and certainly hit the back button there. Certainly it helps us to support the algorithm, so we appreciate any support that you give us. Also, if Lost can gear up the Cash Apps, and certainly if you want to drop a Cash App or a Super Chat to the Black Man Unfiltered Network, you can certainly do so. We'll have those details as you're scrolling at the bottom of the screen, or anything that you want to drop onto us. Certainly we have our own individual Cash Apps that you can certainly drop. Anything that you want to give to us, we certainly appreciate your efforts. But I do want to say one thing, certainly to Peter. I want to say this. Thank you, New York Jets. You made my day today. You had your first win today, which I'm happy about, and you beat the Cincinnati Bengals, which helps me. I know the Steelers, they're playing tonight as well, and as usual, to give me a heart attack here because they always make things harder than what they need to be. But
that's why you wear your referee shirt tonight.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can get some calls this week that we didn't get last week. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But certainly appreciate congrats to the Jets.
I believe our guest is in the background. I see somebody that joined. I'm not sure who is. I've lost. If he's in there, there we go.
There he is. There he is in the building. So we appreciate certainly being here. But let me give this man the proper introduction as we go into this show. So again, Joe Buccino is a 30-year Army veteran. And certainly he's had a very storied career in the military, and he's also a Fox News analyst on Middle East issues. And certainly a husband of 23 years. He has a 20-year-old daughter going to Yale.
And you're going deep, man. Jeez. Okay.
I try to do my research ahead of the show, man, because we on the Gray Area show, just to kind of give you a little background on us, we didn't get a chance to chat ahead of time. So we kind of copped the name the Gray Area because obviously, I'm black and he's white. And so we always try to find
I get it, man.
Right. We try to get the middle ground between us. But one of the several
people don't need to know how long I've been married, man. That's not...
But well, look, I'm in season 29, so I'm.
You gonna give out my SAT scores? Is that what?
Nah, we didn't. I couldn't find those. If you give me, I'm like, if you give me a week, I'm a few hours, I'm good. But if you give me a week, I'm great.
Let me ask
you this. I'm keeping an eye on Steelers, man. Forget the Jets. If you're the Bengals, how exactly do you lose that game?
I have no idea. I turned the game off. I was out with the family this afternoon, and I just turned the game off. I was like, all right, this game is over and whatnot. So then my phone starts blowing up because I got a lot of Jets fans as friends of mine, and they're like, yeah, Jay, just. I'm like, what happened? Then I saw the score. But it's like it happened to the Giants last week. You give up 33 points in the fourth quarter, and you lose that game to Denver, who also got blown out. Who also
I'll be honest with both you guys
today. So
I came home from church. I turned the game on, like, oh, we lost. Threw the controller. When I get a haircut, ran some errands. I came home like, are you fucking kidding me? The one time I don't watch the game, we win. The one game. Maybe I'm taking
I'm
luck from
trying to
here.
pour some of that strategy now because when I watch the Steelers, I get very frustrated. So I don't watch the game. I may follow in the cloud. I'll check the score every once in a while, but it's like I don't. I try not to put too much pressure on myself, especially at my age now.
The Steelers look good right now. They're playing Steelers football tonight.
I hope so because it's like I just want a nice game, a nice win, 30-7, something like that. Nice. So I can just you want to take your starters out in the fourth quarter with like 6 minutes left and whatnot. You want to be able to do that, but every game is just like down to the wire. So
this year's been a weird year for football. A lot of players that were saying it would be really good, they're doing really bad this year. So let's get into the show, guys. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, Joe, certainly want to appreciate you coming on. I gotta watch some of your comedy bits.
It means a lot.
And you are hilarious. I mean,
thanks, man.
And the thing is, we've on the show. One of the serendipities of the show is that we've been able to interview a lot of former military guys, a lot of guys. So we had our first big interview with Dwayne White, who hopefully you know him, and great guy. And
awesome
so he said that in the future, if you know some guys, whatever, give some context and references and whatnot. So it really started with him, and we really appreciated him coming on. Had a great time. But we love
our buddy CQ. I don't know if I'm probably not familiar with him. He's also a veteran comedian too. He runs another channel called Pop Culture Warrior, and that's how we hooked up with Dwayne White. And then I came and harassed you for a couple of days. So the rest is history. So let's ask a big question. We always start is, what is your relationship with the military?
My relationship with the military, man, I love the Army, man. I really do. I love everything about it. I'm just now, so I retired a little more than 2 years ago, and I'm just now getting to the point where I don't think about it all the time. I miss the shit out of it, but I don't obsess over it like I used to. I miss the people. I miss the parades, man. I miss the PT. I miss everything. Ranges, fucking deployments, leading troops, airborne operations. I loved it. I was a soldier for 30 years, man. And that was all I knew, that was all I knew.
Yeah.
And then, I retired from CENTCOM, the Middle East Command there in Tampa. And we were working Israel, Gaza. And I worked, normally when you're an Army colonel and you did 30 years, you get like a year to off ramp, 6, 7, 8, 12 months to off ramp. And my retirement ceremony was October 29th. And it was on a Friday. And it was at 1:30 p.m. on a Friday. My family came in. I worked up until 11:30. So, and then I retired. And then I had like 5 days left on the rolls, and then flew to DC. So I worked right up until my retirement, and I loved everything about it, man. I really did.
Wow, that is awesome.
What rank was it when you came out?
What's that? What rank was that? I was an Army colonel when I retired.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now you're from Queens originally, right? So I think you and Peter kind of have that common background.
We're from the same neighborhood. I'm from Astoria, my man.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah, I'm originally from Astoria. I live in PA now, but I grew up mostly in Astoria. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh, he's one of my boys.
Yeah. I grew up in Jackson Heights. I was a big, and still am, always been the only team that I actively and aggressively root for in any sport is the Mets. I really grew up with the Mets, still, love the Mets. Went to Citi Field this year for the first time in 5 years. But yeah, I observed the Jets, but the Jets are not a New York team. And to me, it's always more interesting when they lose. It's just always chaotic with that team.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I went to high school in Long Island, so we moved out to Deer Park, Long Island, and I went to school I went to St. Anthony's in South Huntington.
Oh wow.
I think that's hilarious in a way. I can tell you why. Because I grew up mostly in Queens. I actually went to high school in Brentwood.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. The connection between you got it.
Yeah. We had to kind of, it's a real thing. we had to move. I got beaten up so much that we had to move to Long Island. Like when you, I was like a small, skinny kid, and my dad wasn't around, so like I never learned how to fight. And
Right.
in the late '80s, early '90s, you had to know how to fight, and I didn't
Yeah.
know how to do that stuff. So we had to move. We had to move to avoid all that.
Right.
I still got beaten up in Long Island, but it was less. It was.
Know the feeling.
Yeah.
Again, I was the sort of the scrawny kid. I think when I graduated high school, I'm 6'3", but I
Oh
weighed
shit!
147 pounds when I
Holy
graduated high
shit!
school. So I was called Jimmy JJ Walker from Good Times.
Yeah,
I was Manute Bowl. I mean, I got picked on like all the time. So yeah, it wasn't until years later I decided to hit the weights in the gym and whatnot and started to build up a little bit. But yeah, certainly certainly growing up at that time, yeah, definitely, if you didn't have guys protecting you or whatever, yeah, you get picked on very easily. So learn how to make friends quick.
Yeah.
Guys to come to
Yeah.
your defense. But overall, how was life? I guess growing up in Long Island and whatnot. So what was household life growing up in that portion of Long Island?
I don't know. It was rough. I had a chaotic childhood. We can get into it. I had a chaotic childhood. My dad wasn't around. My mom had some emotional, mental problems, and trying to work through all that was
Yeah.
tough. I think she's aged out of it in some ways, gotten some treatment, and we're starting to. It takes a long time to make amends over stuff
Yeah.
like that, but you start to see that people maybe are people are maybe controlled by other emotional imbalances and factors,
Exactly.
and hurt people, right? And so she had a tough. My mom's from Brazil, and so she had a long backstory in her life. So yeah, I had a chaotic childhood, man. It was it was tough, but
yeah. Same here. My mom, she battled mental illness since I was born. Basically, I'm the youngest of 5, and with my older siblings, it's a different experience for them because they saw her decline, into that. When I was born, that's kind of all I saw. My mom just passed last year, and it took me a long time to come to that as well, where you can make the intellectual the logic to say, yes, I mean, it's an illness. We know about, certain, mental illness and whatnot. You can rationalize it in your mind. It's still sometimes it doesn't take away the trauma, which you had to deal with and whatnot. And so, so it took me a while to kind of get to that point of peace. Just knowing that, and in her latter years, I was the one I was a primary caregiver out of all the siblings. So, so just, sort of come to terms with that really, helped me kind of put things in perspective. But yeah, but I can certainly relate to, dealing with that. And my dad, he didn't come back into my life until I was a teenager. So it was like I was with my mom till about 13, then I lived with my dad, and that was a different experience, in and of itself and whatnot. So yeah, we all come from different places, but the fact that we're here, we're and in a lot of ways we're stronger. That doesn't kill us, makes us stronger, right? So we're here and we're battling and doing things. But tell us about again how what was your interest in because when I was reading your bio, it's like you had an interest in comedy like very early on.
I did.
Right? And so it's like you're talking high school time or whatever. So talk about that. Where did this love of comedy come from? Because the amazing thing I find in your story is that you went back to it. Like all these years later, you had this career, whatnot, but it was just something that was you and it never left. So where did that come from? What was your first comedy experience? Talk about that love of comedy and where did it originate from?
Well, I like I said, I had a really traumatic childhood, but I learned how to be very quick, how to be very funny. And I kind of grew internal. You kind of, when you're in chaos as a kid, you don't understand that your mom, and in the 80s and 90s, there was no language around the emotional disorders. You just didn't know what was going on. So I learned how to grow internal, and I just started to study and follow comedians, Stephen Wright, George Carlin, Bob Goldthwait, these guys in the 80s. And when I was 15, I went to an open mic night in East Side Comedy Club, which was at the time was in South Huntington, and then it moved to Farmingdale, and then it closed. And so I went. It was kind of a terrifying experience, but I had some notes I went up with some notes, and I was making reference to the notes, and people were laughing about that. And then I did it probably about 20 times total.
Mhm.
And I went to see, when I was 16, I went to see Gilbert Gottfried
Oh man.
at Governor's Comedy Club, which at the time was like the second biggest club in Long Island. The biggest club was East Side Comedy Club.
Right.
And then after, you know, after all that, I kind of had no kind of path, but I thought I'd go into the Army for 5 years. I would come out, and that would be, I kind of always wanted to go in the Army because one thing I knew about my dad was that he missed the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
And I never fully knew the circumstances. I didn't know if doesn't matter that much, but
Right.
I knew he regretted that. I think he dodged the
Mm.
draft. I don't know the whole story.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I felt, and I didn't really like my dad, still don't, but I thought that was something I should do, or maybe felt an obligation towards. But I was going to do it for like 3, 4, 5 years, and then come out, and that was going to be my sort of centerpiece to talk about in comedy.
Right.
And then I stayed on to go to Korea because I thought that would be cool. And then 9/11 happened while I was in Korea.
Mm.
And then we just kept getting deployed.
Right.
And then I kept getting promoted. and then it just, it's like at a certain point, as you know, you're at like 11 years, and it's like, okay, what path do I take? Do I go to 20 years and get a retirement and follow that? Have I invested? I've invested this much. I did 20 years, and then I had some cool opportunities to work for Secretary Mattis in the Pentagon, and
Wow.
I
Yeah.
did some
That's cool.
kick-ass shit. Yeah, I was one of his advisors, and then but it was always in my mind to do it. It was always in my mind to do it, and then I retired, and so let me try to. This is a long story, but it's important. I don't want to make
No,
it
please
short.
spin it.
Yeah.
You get the
So
floor.
I retired with no plan. I was working right up until my last day. I was in the Middle East Command, like literally like flying 15 days out of every month. I was in the Middle East, flying to the Middle East with the commander, with the Saudi chief of defense and Jordan, right in the center of everything, right? Just this enormous adrenaline rush all the time. And then I lost that. I lost it just like that. And I went back to DC. My wife and I were like, well, let's move. My daughter was out of the house. She's in college. So we're like, well, let's move to DC. And I'll find something, because a lot of the people I worked with in the Pentagon were still there.
Right.
And for a while I was just hanging around. I wouldn't really want to like look for a job. And I was drinking during the day, which I normally don't do. I'm 17 months sober now, but I was drinking a lot during the day, and I read this book. I'm a voracious reader, and my daughter was home for the holidays, and I read this book, I'm Dying Up Here, about the LA Comedy Store in the 80s. And I just started crying, literally crying. And my daughter said, you're going to have to do this. You're going to have to go back and do this. And so I did. And so my entry into this was largely, to continue this, was largely through Dwayne White, who is kind of like the headmaster of the veteran comedians in the area I work in Northern Virginia.
Right.
And so that wasn't the first open mic I did. It was probably like the 4th or 5th where the show he runs, the mic he runs. And then, I absolutely loved it. Everything about it, I'm my own producer, my own writer, my own manager. I do all my own marketing, and, I really enjoy the camaraderie of it. Just the thrill of it and everything like that. And I just became enthralled with it, and I started to get good at it, started to get bookings, and then, just really became, my ambition was, and still is, just to be undeniably funny rather than to, I don't know, do anything else. Whatever the other things are you would think about in a successful comedy career. My ambition was, and still is, just to be undeniably funny. So when I'm on stage, a lot of these comics, they're on stage, you think maybe they're funny, they're not. You don't remember anything they said.
Right.
People would remember this guy talked about like some real shit.
Yeah.
And some psychologically broke these things down, and he was undeniably funny. That's my goal.
Gotcha. Were you a member of the? Because I know Dwayne, he's part of that Armed Forces Partnership Comedy Boot Camp.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you enroll there? Were you part of that program? It's like a 6-week kind of boot camp sort of course. Did you participate in that as you were on the come up?
I did. So I was doing it for about 6 months, and he told me about it. He told me about it early on, and I didn't want to do it right away. Initially, I didn't want to do it, and then I ended up doing it. He taught the one I did, and then we did a graduation show at DC Improv, which was fucking amazing. My first time at DC Improv. And he teaches you how to kind of structure a set and how to kind of structure your pace, your energy. And so he gives you a lot over, I think it's 7 weeks.
Right.
And so it was a great opportunity for me. I really encourage all veterans to go through that, even if it's just kind of a bucket list thing, man. It's a cool experience. And, there's potentially some important, I don't know, life lessons that could come out of that you could apply to anything you do outside of the Army or the military.
I hear a lot of my friends who are veterans who moved to the DMV area, like you are, go through that program, and some of them, run with it. Some of them, it was something I learned, and it's a bucket thing I did, and that's all it was. I think it's a great program, to be honest with you, and it helps a lot of people because let's be honest here, coming out of the Army, you're losing the purpose of what you were doing for 20, 30 years, and you need to find that purpose, and that's where a lot of veterans struggle, like yourself. Also, I want to say is you being sober 17. I know we just first met now. I'm proud of you for doing that. I'll be checking up on your phone now on every once a month. You better check up and tell me you're going. Once you hit your 2 years, we're going out, and I'll buy you a nice steak dinner. How's that sound?
Let's do it, brother. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, man. Let's do it.
I'm down in the DMV area at least once a year, so I'm definitely going to link up with you once.
That is true. I'm trying to get down there myself. We got some guys who are coming up this way, and because I'm in New Jersey, so got guys coming up this way and whatnot. But I know Pete, he makes a lot of travels down to that area, and I need to join him with some. We're trying to do some show content from down there, so hopefully get some guys together to do that. But I gotta ask you though. So again, you started early. You started 15. Who were your early comedic examples? I know you talk about Carlin, some of those guys, but then who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of comedy?
Right now, I would say definitely Carlin. Carlin was always my great influence. I saw him at Madison Square Garden when I was 15. It was amazing. George Carlin, definitely Mitch Hedberg. Kind of these dry one-liners. Stephen Wright was always one of my guys. Gilbert Gottfried. I know he got in trouble, but Louis C.K. is he kind of carries in that tradition of Carlin, in that he gets so deep and psychological, and he also drags you down into this very dark path that you don't really want to go as an audience member. And it's a rare talent that he does it that way. Those would be my top guys right now.
I agree, and especially with Carl. I don't think I've ever laughed. I guess comedy's funny with me, and it's interesting because my wife and I we're almost empty nesters, but my and so we're getting back into going to comedy shows. So like in New Brunswick here, we got the Stress Factory. Brunswick. So we're trying to go. In fact, D.L. Hughley was there just this past Friday. We were trying to go. It was sold out. So we're trying to get back in the comedy circuit. It's interesting because I don't know if you like this show. Remember that show, King of Queens? There was an episode with I think the couple. I guess they had broken up with the couple they used to hang out with. So they were looking for like a new couple to kind of go to shows and do stuff with. So like my wife and I, in the same thing. It's like we need a couple, right? So we've been. With kids and everything so long, it's like we need a couple to hang out with and go to comedy shows with. So we're somewhat shopping for that. But just getting back to Carlin, I never laughed at his stuff, but it was like you want to laugh, but then it's like, you know what? That's a good point. You know what I mean? It was like he was doing this brain surgery on you in terms of how you looked at life. So it was like, like you laugh, you're dying laughing. But he was just like he could have been like something else. He could have been a psychiatrist, a psychologist. he could have been anything else, but I mean, the way he thought was just, and in a lot of ways, it's prophetic in terms of, you see where the world is now. He would have loved some of the world we're in, the PC world that we're in right now, and he would have had a field day with some of the content. But yeah, I mean, great list of guys.
Me
Recently,
personally,
I got Bill Burr. He's kind of grown on me over the last couple of years as well, especially during the pandemic. So I've definitely picked him up as well.
see, personally, I suffer from some trauma myself, and it's very hard for me to laugh. So, like, people laugh at work and like, "Why are you not laughing?" Like, I don't think I'm funny. But it's like literally 5 comedians I can count in my hand. And I'm honestly, I'm not trying to say that because you're on. You're one of the comedians that actually make me laugh. I'm laughing.
Oh, thanks,
my dog looked at me like, "Dude, why are you laughing at?" I'm like,
That's
but the
awesome,
question
man.
I really want to ask is, the first time you actually stepped on stage with a mic, how nervous and what kind of emotions you went through?
When I was a kid, when I was 15.
15 and when you were adult.
Well, yeah, well, contrast, right. So that first time when you got on a 15, and then after all these years, you go back on stage for the first time. Was it like a similar, was it like
No.
deja vu again, or was it totally different?
No, when I was 15, I got to the club. Everything about it was terrifying, right? They were all adults. The other comics were adults. I walked in, I didn't know kind of what I was walking into. There are probably 20 people. You said Comedy Club. There are probably 20 people, and this is you're thinking about think about like an old 1980s comedy club, brick wall.
Yep.
So everything about it was terrifying, just very intimidating. And when I was getting ready to go up, I kept making sure Joan St. Ange was I actually keep in touch with her, was the host. I just kept telling her how to pronounce my name, and I was worried about that. And then I went up with my notes, and I was like, all right, this is happening. And then I just started talking into the mic, and I had my notes there, and I made a joke about how I kept looking at my notes, and people laughed at that. And I was like, all right, that actually went pretty good. When I went back, it was completely different because, I'm used to talking in front of people. I'm used to commanding an audience. I understand persuasion, tone, pitch, everything, how to talk to in general, how to make people laugh. And so I was like, all right, this is something I'm going to be able to do.
Right.
And I actually was. I didn't necessarily have the strength of material the first time I went back as an adult. But I did pretty well immediately. And you just get better at it as you just keep iterating and just learn from guys like Dwayne, and you just keep getting better at it. Now, believe it or not, I'm actually on the road right now doing shows in Boston. I'm in a hotel in Boston. So that was a big opportunity for me to do some cool shows at the Comedy Studio in Boston this weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
That's terrific. Now, I also read in your bio, you also have done some work with the USO. Tell me about that experience and what has been, I guess, in doing that, some of your most rewarding experiences from that. Because again, when we talked to Dwayne, he said that was one of the biggest thrills, and just to go back and serve and with those guys and whatnot. So talk about that, your USO experience and what that's done for your comedy.
Yeah, it was cool. I did some of the bases in Northern Virginia, and I did Fort Bragg, which is where I spent 9 years in Fort Bragg as a paratrooper. That one was pretty cool. I'm doing Fort Knox next year, but yeah, it was great, man. Soldiers eat that shit up, man. I know how to connect with soldiers, and I did some evening shows for soldiers and spouses and families, and that was an awesome experience, just reconnecting there. It's just that those are my people, man. So
yeah,
it was cool. We had one show. Yeah, we had one show where there was a. I made the lineup for one of these shows, and I brought this comedian on who's kind of like very vulgar, but I wanted to have a good mix.
Yeah,
and we told everybody this is not a PG show,
right.
And this couple brought this 9-year-old girl.
Oh, geez.
And for some reason, I don't really know why. For some reason, she was dressed up as a princess. And I was like, you may want to. I was like, you may want to leave. I told him quietly, you may want to leave before this guy. Like, no, we're good. I was like, all right. And then I told the guy, it's like, don't talk about these 3 things.
No.
Don't talk about gay porn. Don't do your fucking 9/11 thing. Don't do this. He's like, okay. He gets up. First thing, gay porn. Gay porn. And then I got back in stage and I said, Isabella, you just grew up. You're going to grow up really fast tonight. You're going to. So it ended up being fine, but I mean, it was on them once I said, but that was kind of a risky moment. That was probably a judgment error on my part.
Yeah.
So let me ask another question here. Like, was it ever a show you went on stage like, oh, this is going bad, and you try and bring the crowd around, and you couldn't get them back as much as you tried?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of yes. Yeah. I did a show. I'm not supposed to mention the name of the place, but it was a private room in Manhattan for like really high-end clientele. And it was like, it looked like, you know, kind of like the room in, you know, Eyes Wide Shut. It looked like, you know, these kinds of things. And so I started out, and it was, I didn't know this, but it was like a very liberal, I didn't know this. I thought high clientele, they're going to go into myself. It's very liberal, very left-leaning. And I started talking about how I work on Fox News. I lost him immediately. And then it was like, it was almost like, you know, a boxer takes a body blow and you don't know how to react to it.
Right.
And I just kept kind of repeating myself. And this is early on, so I didn't really have the mechanisms to work my way out of it. And then I tried talking to the crowd, and it came off as very angry, which wasn't what I intended. And it came out like I was lashing out at the crowd. And so I actually talked to Dwayne about that afterwards, and he said, you know, in a situation like that, keep doing your material. Don't worry about, like, the audience isn't going to know it's going poorly unless you tell them. And I kept telling him it was going poorly. And he said, and don't do the crowd work until you really know how to do it, and you don't know how to do it yet. So it was a good lesson learned. I do want to say, so I came full circle in my life. Like I told you, I saw Gilbert Gottfried at Governors when I was 16.
Right.
Governors is now the biggest club on Long Island because East Side closed.
Right.
And I headlined last month there.
Wow.
Talking about full circle, man. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's like a dream come true for you, right?
Yeah, my wife drove me, and yeah, it was amazing. It was an awesome night. Yeah.
Wow. So
now let me ask you another question. Like, obviously you've been deployed. What is the most scariest deployment you ever been? Like you were thinking like, I may not come out of it in one piece or even alive.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have those kinds of deployments, to be honest with you. I did. I was in artillery, so when we came up the berm in Kuwait into Iraq in 2003, I was in rocket launchers, so that, you know, kind of like Baghdad run. I was behind all the infantry. I have a lot of deployments. I had 5 Afghanistan and 3 Iraq, but I never really was terribly much in danger. You know what I mean? I did. I was in Eastern Afghanistan, and we did some cool patrols, but the war was largely over by then. So, you know, I don't know. I kind of missed a lot of that kind of stuff. Like my third Iraq deployment, by the time I went back to Iraq for the third time, it was 2010. And it was basically over. Like the shooting was over. You know, we were just like paying the Sunnis to secure southern Baghdad, which is where I was. And I don't know, it was fun. I mean, we didn't have a hell of a lot for us to do, but we were training brigades, and it was my deployments were actually kind of laid back, to be honest with you. You know.
Did any of you guys like pull pranks on you, or you pull pranks on them? You can like kind of want to share a little secrets with us.
Yeah, all the time, man. You know, we had when we first went to Iraq, it was a different army, right? It was a different army, and you couldn't get away with a lot of the stuff. But I was in a rocket launcher battalion, and every 6 weeks they would make one of the captains the porn kingpin for the battalion, and you had to manage like all the porn. Yeah. And this is when you like porn was in like magazines and in CDs.
Right.
So and no, you know, you had to make sure you secured the porn like it was a sensitive item. And you signed it out on a formal statement. So I was the porn kingpin for 6 weeks, and the gunnery sergeant came in and like stole all this fucking porn. And then I didn't know who it was. I didn't really know who it was, and somebody told me it was Gunny Smoke. And then I started a rumor, and people believed there. I started a rumor that he only stole gay porn.
Oh,
And nobody believed that.
That's
So,
foul.
that's great.
yeah. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave the story at that.
Oh, come on, it's getting juicy too.
I know.
One of the coolest things I did was we were one of the first. Well, no, we were the first unit in Saddam's Western Palace in Baghdad. It was untouched, like it was beautiful, beautiful palace. And I said, you know, we should leave a mark. We should do something here. You know, we should leave a mark. I had two ideas at the same time. First was we should like somehow mark this as our territory. And I also really have to take a shit. So you see how these two ideas came together. And I think that thing's still there, to be honest. Yeah. In the corner of the, when you go into the entranceway, you make an immediate left in the corner there. It's probably still there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Marinated over the years.
Yeah.
Wow. Now I know you've talked about in some of your comedy bits that you've done a lot of like administrative work, human resources, and whatnot. So talk about that aspect of the job, because we've talking to like airborne, we got Green Berets we've had on, different guys and whatnot. But you know, and talk about that administrative role. Like what was that like, and you know, in terms of make things, I guess, comfortable for the soldiers there, or making it more like home or whatever. Like what was the, you know, the thought process, and when you went into a place and tried to and so, you know, you talk about building strip malls and stuff like that. Talk about that kind of work.
Yeah. I guess for me, well, I spent a lot of my time in artillery, and I liked artillery. I liked the rocket launcher part of artillery because the back end of the rocket launcher was so complicated. There's so many different launcher loader modules, and if something happens with any of them short circuit, the whole thing doesn't work.
Right.
And so it was just a cool thing to kind of memorize, and I became the master for all of the 3rd Infantry Division on the back end of the 270 Alpha 1 rocket launcher, and then I moved into human resources. And human resources for me, it was just about taking care of soldiers and trying to, you know, we'd get to any place we were first and just trying to provide as much as we could in terms of going from cots to beds and building up chews and, you know, building contracts and just trying to make things, you know, you're there for 15, 18 months trying to make things as comfortable as they can. You know, I love soldiers, man. I really do. And I always had cool teams around me. And I feel like I was always an officer that people wanted to work for, because I always took care of my own people first, and then from there we took care of everybody else. Yeah.
Now, is that a different mentality from? I've always thought you kind of had this old school sort of mentality. It's got to be hard, and you know, keep guys gruff, and you know, you make soldiers soft if you make things too comfortable for them or whatnot. So, were you ever at conflict with that, with like higher ups? It was like, oh no, soldiers don't need all this stuff or whatever, or were you? Was that something that was pretty consistent, that this is what the military as a whole wanted to provide for the soldiers, or did you have like a, you know, different mindsets that thought different in terms of what a soldier really needed versus you know, what they might have thought were extras or, you know, accessories?
No, I mean, I always had good commanders, and the idea, even when we were in Eastern Afghanistan, we were on the border with Pakistan, and those were pretty austere conditions. But even there, what I tried to tell the commander is let's try to humanize this as much as we can. Get treadmills out there, get weightlifting equipment, if we can get beds out there, when we get Chinooks, we can fly this stuff out there. And they always wanted to do it. The commanders always, the only time I ever had a bad commander was in my first battalion, my first tour, and in my very last time in the Army, in the Middle East Command. But yeah, they always wanted to do it. They always wanted to provide, and it was cool. If you see the movie Restrepo, you remember that movie?
I don't think I've seen that one. But
I remember it.
I gotta look that up.
Yeah. That was the guy who is in that. It's a documentary film about Eastern Afghanistan. I was not on that deployment, but I actually know that guy, Dan Kearney. I got to meet him. We were in the 82nd together. He's a great guy. He commands a brigade in 10th Mountain Division now. But those are like the harshest circumstances that American soldiers faced in Afghanistan. And even then, when they retreated back to their operating base, they tried to live in as much comfort as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Now, the question I want to ask you is, with today's military, and when you went in, do you think the military got a lot softer? For example, like one of my friends, sister-in-law got deployed, and when she called and she got there, she was like, "Hey, I'm good. What's going on?"
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was you got a little card, you gave the little speech, and hanged up, and that's it. Do you think they got a little softer than when you went in?
I think it got softer and it got smarter at the same time. So it was good and bad. I think you couldn't have women in a lot of these roles when I came in the late 90s. You just couldn't do it. We had a lot of hazing, which I always disagreed with, even when it was accepted.
Right.
You had, just really, really rough hazing where you're beating people up and stuff like that. I didn't agree with a lot of that, but the Army, and they're getting back to it now, fortunately, the Army has gone away from a warfighter mentality. It really did for about 5, 6, 7 years, get away from a warfighter mentality and more into the social aspects and social components of life, and this focus on, ponytails for women and pregnancy uniforms, and going away from fitness standards and overweight soldiers, and just the idea of having. I don't agree with. I don't think that Hegseth is a very good Secretary of Defense, but to the extent that he's focusing the entire department on warfighting, well, that's why we have a standing army. That's why you pay so much into this thing.
Right.
And renaming it, people make fun of this, but renaming it the Secretary of War or the Department of War is really, I think, an appropriate rebranding of why we have that. We have that to kill our nation's enemies effectively and in large numbers. And that's what every person should be thinking about, how they do that or how they contribute to that. So I think we're getting back to that. I think we have, I loved it when he called the generals fat and stupid, because they are, a lot of them are. I think we need, smarter generals, and I think we need fewer fat soldiers. That's what I think.
Yeah. Because you were there at the start of, so you talk about like 95 or early 90s, like the don't ask, don't tell period. So you saw a lot of these evolutions over time, and the fact that you were in there for that amount of time, you saw that. So again, the fact that you could say, yeah, you got softer, but at the same time you got smarter. Talk about how they got smarter, like the smart things that they did in that time as well.
Well, I think you had just I grew up in the Army with the last of the Vietnam War NCOs, and they were shit. A lot of them were bad NCOs. They learned bad habits and bad traits and bad leadership, and you had a lot of abusive leadership, and you can't do that anymore. Now you've got the Inspector General, and you've got EO, and you've got these different things, but those have become weaponized against good leaders that are really just trying to enforce discipline and standards. And I think where we got smarter is, I'm proud of the Army. we got smarter in terms of providing care for our soldiers, and going away from really overly forceful punishment, going away from NCOs and officers that are just shit, that just punish their soldiers and drive them into the fucking ground when it's not necessary. Training soldiers the right way, PTing soldiers the right way, so that they're not broken down, but they're actually gain muscle, they gain strength, they gain fitness, they gain endurance, which is what you need in combat.
Right.
So the Army's become smart in a lot of those ways, and we've become smart in terms of, where we need smarter generals is in terms of new technology and emerging technology with AI, space, missile, cyber. We have a lot of young captains and young lieutenants that are coming into the force now that really know how to use those things.
Right. Yeah.
Our generals don't know how to use those things, but to apply those things to warfighting and apply them at the tactical level, we have a lot of people that know how to use that. We got a lot of sharp people that know how to use that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know.
I was, by the way, I was in the 82nd when we first brought in female rangers and female infantry company commanders, and they were good. They were good. They were good company commanders. I mean, it was a good. If in some ways you want to have the best possible soldiers serving in the infantry, well, some of them are going to be women, and so you probably want some women to lead them. And I think that was a good step. And the command brought them in and integrated them the right way.
Gotcha.
I
know you talked about
I'm sorry. Last night I was talking on my show. We were doing a gaming show, and I was saying a lot of gamers now are getting recruited by the military because they can fly these drones and do all this stuff like that. And it's fascinating to me because we went from the big jock guy who's always going to go in because you needed, the strong guy to get in, versus the tech guy now. And that's where we're going to a technical or a tech warfare kind of army.
Yeah. That's exactly what we need because, we need a combination, right? But if you think about the next war, if we think about Afghanistan and Iraq were not wars in the traditional sense, they were counterinsurgencies. The next war is going to be a war, and wars always start at the technical level and and at the innovative level. And so you start, everything. You think about China, Russia, it's going to be, those things are going to be fought in cyberspace and in space, in low Earth orbit, and through AI. But that stuff all breaks, right? And there's not right now a defense industrial base that can crank that stuff out like we had in World War II. So you're going to have to fall back on traditional war fighting.
Yeah.
Korean War started at a very, kind of technical level.
That's right. The jet fighter really came into play at that point.
The jet fighter, the Air Force. And then once that stuff broke down, you got into a slog like you were trench war fighting like in World War I.
Yeah.
And that's what the next war is going to look like. You need fit soldiers who can fight, who are trained, who can survive, but you need leaders who understand how to apply AI and tie AI to commercial satellites in low Earth orbit. That's why we need better generals. The generals suck. They're stupid, but you got some smart officers out there.
Yeah. You're talking about the fitness aspect of it. I'm a personal trainer.
Oh, wow.
As sort of my side hustle. So I see now that the military went from, it used to be like all calisthenics, how many chin-ups you can do, push-ups and whatnot. Now you got guys doing deadlifts. You got, a lot of strength power, more power training in there. How do you think that made the, made the military better going to that? Because I always thought that, because we're not, I know endurance is important, and you're carrying a lot of heavy equipment from place to place, but also, especially if it gets to a hand-in-hand situation, you got to be strong.
Yeah.
And so I always think you have to sort of balance that out. And so I definitely see a lot more military folks in the gym, or they build gyms on these bases and whatnot for guys could really get some strength training. And so is that something that you saw soldiers not only taking advantage of, but becoming better for all those other tasks that you were talking about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to be strong in your lower body to move, and you're going to have to move in the next fight. You're going to have to move quickly and for long periods with a lot of equipment. And so you need, the 2 mile run, push up, sit up. That's not going to get it done.
Hmm.
You need strength. You need lower body strength to
Yeah.
do that. You need lower body endurance to do that. And so the new combat fitness test, I think, adjudicates for that.
Hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, want to dive a little bit more in as far as you're at that point. You finally retire after all these times. You thought you were initially going to be there for like 3 or 4 years, and that went to 9 years, and then you think, okay, well, let me put my 20 in, and you still stayed there. So you're at this
Yeah.
this point in your life. It's 30 years in. Okay, now I think it's time. But at that time, did you think you had like a plan? Like, okay, so when I'm going to get out, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, or was it, some of the things that have happened to you, like I said, the Fox News gig, for example, is that something that just sort of befell you at the time? So talk about, what you thought was the exit strategy and how it ultimately wound up where, you were able to land the gigs that you did.
I didn't have one. I didn't. I always thought that it was opportunities were going to come to me. I was retiring as a colonel from the Middle East Command. I'd worked for. I was a assistant to Mattis in the Pentagon. Visited the White House with him. I just thought things were going to come to me. I thought I was still well connected. And then so we said, well, let's just go to DC. I didn't have a plan per se. I didn't have a plan at all. I just figured I'd get to DC and I'd start calling people. I'd start calling my network. And I got to DC and I didn't call anybody. I just was like, I gotta fucking decompress and I gotta, figure out how to separate because I didn't have any time to do it. And then I'm really glad this happened, but Jennifer Griffin from Fox News Pentagon correspondent. So we were I was already working like the Israel Gaza stuff when I was in the Middle East Command. She called me and said, "Hey, can you come in and explain to the Bureau what's going to happen next?" And so I did. I walked in, had a meeting with them, and I said, "These 3 things. This is how Gaza is going to unfold. This is the way Hamas is looking at the tunnel warfare, and this is how they built up their defenses. This is what the IDF is going to do." And over the next like 8 days, everything I said happened. And they said, "All right, well,
really?
yeah." And then I wrote an article in Foreign Policy about it. And then she said, "Well, come on and do a hit and talk about the foreign policy article." And so I did. And then they said, the guy that normally does this is Jack Keane, this very old Army general who's like, he's been out of the Army for like 25 years. He's like 100 years old. And so they're like, "Well, your information is more relevant." And they said, "Well, can you come back in and now talk about this strictly from the perspective of Lebanese Hezbollah and what they might do?" So I said, "Yeah." So I came and did that. They had me come in and do one more, and then they're like, "Hey, we want to put you on a contract. The contract is by hit." And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great. Give me something to think about and do." And I was still talking to the IDF leadership. I still have connections over there, still talking to CENTCOM leadership. And then we changed the contract to be I'd get paid regardless of how many hits I did. I did a lot more of it in the Biden administration. And then when Trump came in, it kind of turned to more of a focus on everything's about Trump and a lot more about Russia. So I don't do quite as much. Every once in a while, they let me talk about Russia, but frankly, Russia-Ukraine is not exactly my area of expertise. So
Right.
But yeah, I like doing it. I never intended to do it for this long. I guess what I'd say is I'm quiet quitting. Is that whatever that term is?
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to separate from it. So sometimes they call me and I don't go in, and I'm trying to off ramp.
Separate yourself slowly.
I'm trying to do it where I don't say, "Hey, I quit," and they don't say you're formally fired. I don't know. I'm trying to like passive aggressive quit.
Yeah. So
Because they're very,
yeah.
they're very over the top of my Instagram, and I'm not gonna. I need that. I need to keep that going. At Joe_tells_jokes is my Instagram for anybody watching.
Awesome. If you you drop that, if we can drop that in the chat and make sure that we pass that on for sure, that'd be great.
The question I want to ask you as you're doing that, the timeline you were saying, 95 was Black Hawk Down incident happened. What were you at the time?
95, I was just coming into the Army. So I came to the Army in 96. And so, I later met a couple of folks that were on that mission in Mogadishu, but I didn't really know much about it until after it happened. I didn't know much about the mission in Mogadishu, and then obviously read the Mark Bowden book, and then, it was probably 10 or 15 years later that I started meeting when I went to the 82nd Airborne, I met some of the folks who were in Black Hawk Down. Yeah.
So my next question follow up with that, during the 13-hour incident, what were you then at the time when that whole happened?
In the Mogadishu, I was in Albany. I was going through MEPS and getting ready to come into the Army, and I came in the next year. So I was kind of like following the news, probably just like everybody else.
Yeah.
I still didn't really understand the purpose of the Mogadishu mission. And then I just started reading. I tried to read as much as I could about it, after it happened.
What about the Benghazi incident? Where were you then?
Benghazi, where was I for that? I was in the 80s. Yeah, I was in the 82nd when we did that. So we had the global response force. We were never called for that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I know I met Chris Tanto at a book signing, and he told me stories. Like, he said, we called for help, but nobody showed up because of how hot the area was. And 13 guys, fighting off, that's impressive in my book, personally. Yeah. And the question I want to ask you, I always hear from my friends who are in the military, out in the military, higher rank you gets more into the politics side of the stuff. Is that true? Can you touch base on that, or if you're even allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, no, I can talk about it. It's man, it's very, you see the real side of people, man, that you just see the real side of people. Just people. I think that ambition is good. It can be a good quality. But ambition has a real dark side. And when people get to be lieutenant colonel and they start to see the power that comes with being a colonel, the power that comes with being a brigade commander, the power that comes with being a general, it changes them. And you just see people just stabbing other officers in the back and creating little camps with each other. And, even working in the Mattis Secretary of Defense, I didn't talk to anybody, man, because I just, that whole thing, you had the mix of political appointees with military officers, with uniformed officers, and it got confusing. Like the uniformed officers started to act like political appointees and attach themselves to these political principles, and it just, none of it felt good. I didn't trust a lot of people. I saw a lot of people being really deceptive about things and claiming people's work for theirs, and it just got really ugly. And I got, in my last command, in the Middle East command, I got really sideways with the CENTCOM commander, who turned out as kind of a bad guy. But you just saw a really ugly side of the uniformed military there,
And did you see that as like a devolution over time? It just got worse, or has it kind of been always that way going back to, I don't know, the 80s or the 70s, whatever time period? I mean, has military for the most part always, from your perspective, been political, or it's just gotten worse and worse?
I don't know, because the first time I really saw it was 2016. So I don't know what it was like before that.
Sometimes you got to get into the rooms to really kind of see what's going on. what's going
Yeah.
on and how things are run.
Yeah.
I got you.
But
I got
people,
Did you ever work
once,
with?
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
once somebody gets to be a colonel, not everybody, but some of these people, you see that once they get to be a colonel and they have an opportunity to be 1 star, it changed. Like they will do anything to do that. Some of these people,
Mhm.
and it was just a really kind of ugly side of people, and I always, I don't know, I guess I always just wanted to take care of troops and be
Yeah.
true to my values and who I was, and I just, a lot of people I just stopped talking to, there's a lot of
Yeah.
people I just stopped talking to.
Yeah. So did that help to usher your exit? Like, so I guess what ultimately made decisions like, okay, I gotta go. When was that moment?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, I hit my peak at 30 years. I hit my mandatory retirement, and they wanted to extend me for 2 more years to stay
Mhm.
there. And I was working. The guy I was working for, the 4-star commander of CENTCOM, I'd worked for him for 9 years, 9 years
Mhm.
straight, and uh, you know, it was. I just really saw a side of him that was pretty ugly, and he was a hard guy to work for. He was always a hard guy to work for, but when he started to kind of talk shit about me and do some of this other shit, it really soured me to staying in. And I just said, all right, well, it's 30 years. 30 years is good. 30 years is a good mark. I'm not going to extend for 2 more years because they would have to extend me as a colonel because I had no upward mobility.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Gotcha.
and I was like, there's no point. There's no
You
extra.
took it as far as you could.
Yeah,
And
there's no extra like rating or more money
right.
in retirement. And it was just, I was also just exhausted.
I hear you.
Yeah, you were
Yeah.
just burnt out. You needed to finally get a break from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
One question I like to ask, all especially military guys when they come on. Again, the title of our show is obviously the gray area, and what we
Yeah.
oftentimes find is, soldiers, especially when you go in, you have these ideas about the military and military life or what the expectations are, and a lot of times the way you see the world, the way you see conflict might be a little bit different once you get up and see it. So the question I always like to ask guys is, was there a gray area that you found, given all these deployments that you were in, all these places, all these war zones that you were in, and seeing how was your view of the world shaped by that, and how it was different than, again, maybe when you were a younger soldier, or having these different expectations. So was there a gray area for you that really open up your eyes to how the world, how things really are versus what you might have thought they were?
I guess what I saw is that there's no wisdom that's bestowed on army generals.
Mm.
And a lot of them, I always say you lead how you were led, and you sort of carry on the characteristics and traits of people who brought you up. And when I got to Iraq and just started seeing, when I got to Iraq, I tried to read a book every 3 days about Iraq, the tribes, Sunni, Shia, what was happening.
Mhm.
And a lot of these generals, they didn't understand, or they didn't even have the intellectual curiosity to
Mm.
try to understand or desire to understand what was really
Wow.
happening. And they just mismanaged these wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. And they all fucked up, but they fucked up. Every one of them got promoted. I wrote an article. I guess it got me in trouble when I was a lieutenant colonel, but you could, I wrote that a general can lose a war and get promoted. A soldier loses a rifle and gets kicked out of the army. And it was just, when you're a young soldier, you think you have these incredible thoughts about Army generals, right? That they're
Mhm.
wise and that they're strategic and they're brilliant and they make these decisions and they're basically they're people, right? And a lot of them just it's a good old boy network in a lot of ways, and
Mm.
a lot of them just don't impress me intellectually. You know, I think I've said it like 5 times in the show, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, because
I
I'm
think
always hearing thought about these guys. You go to academy, you study military strategy, you study the from ancient times to then you got these guys like Patton and
yeah,
just these all these guys who you thought that it was just this knowledge that was just passed on from one generation to the next, but it
yeah,
seems like what you're saying is you said the intellectual curiosity seems to just cut off, and
yeah,
it just seems to be about how do I get promoted
yeah,
versus what is good military strategy, what can we learn from our past, and then how to better understand our current enemy.
yeah,
uh the fact there's a lack of curiosity that despite the training, that's I think that's the first time I'm hearing that
yeah,
that's that's kind of frightening to me, to be quite honest. uh Again, given all this knowledge and whatnot that you think that these guys have to sort of learn and hopefully apply, certainly in the theater of war.
yeah, yeah. The question should be like, what's the best thing for the country? What's the best thing for my unit? What's the best thing for these soldiers? And I didn't see that a lot. And then I also didn't see what's an understanding of the conditions that are happening in Afghanistan. How did this manifest over centuries? What are these people fighting for? These people here, Taliban, Haqqani network, they're on one side one day, they're on another side another day. Why is that? Are they really connected to Kabul? Are they connected to this broader strategy we're trying to build up of a national government?
Mm,
And they just weren't asking those questions or trying to understand that perspective of it.
mm. Wow.
War is psychological. War is in the mind. War is in the mind, and so there's got to be an objective for the people you're fighting, or there's a purpose for what they're trying to do as well. And so what's that objective? Does your strategy align with that?
Mm,
Are you trying to turn the will of the people towards something that they really want to pursue or are ever going to pursue?
mhm.
You
Mhm.
know?
Right, right.
Now I ask this question most of my guests is obviously you were in the service, you were deployed a lot. What was the effect on your wife and your daughter at the time?
Um, I think it was I think it was good for my daughter. They grew very my wife and my daughter are like sisters. They're true like
Mm,
they're truly, and I really do mean this. I'm not exaggerating. They truly are best friends. I mean, my wife doesn't work, right? Because I was, I was in the army for so long, but she does all my production for the shows that I run.
mhm.
But she she talks to my daughter like 2 to 6 times every day.
Uh-huh.
They grew very close. You grow very close in a situation like that. And my daughter learned to kind of rely on friends and make friends in the community. It grew very communal. She grew up in a lot of different places, and when you're preparing a year or 6 months to a year to deploy with a unit, that unit, hopefully, if you got good leadership, hopefully it grows very tight and the families grow very tight. And she's made a lot of friends that she maintains. Her best friend was our neighbor, literally our next door neighbor. He left the army right after that deployment, but our next door neighbor in Germany. And so I think it was good for her. She has a level of resilience I don't see in her peers, in a lot of her peers. She's very independent and she's very social. She can make friends, but she can also identify, you know, which people she doesn't want to associate with. And so,
Mm,
I think it was really good for her.
yeah. If you don't mind me asking, how'd you meet your wife? You don't mind me
We
asking?
met Yeah, no, that's good. It's a good question. So my wife's Guyanese. My wife's from the country of Guyana
Mhm.
in South America, and
Yeah.
I worked for her father in they had a bodega in Manhattan, and worked
Right.
for her father, and he asked me to walk her home, and that's how we met. Yeah,
And the rest is
the
history.
rest is
You
history, man.
you
Yeah,
talked
yeah,
about how instrumental, and this was something that Dwayne, when he was on the show, he shared also, that the family support. I mean, because again, this is, you know, you got the Fox gig or whatnot, but I mean, for a lot of people, it says, "Oh, I think I want to try comedy."
yeah,
You may not get necessarily a positive response from that. One, they may say, "Well, look, is there any money in that or what have you?" But again, when you talked about your daughter saying like, "Dad, you need to do this," and then you said your wife, she helps set up a lot of your gigs, or that she takes you to gigs. Talk about that family support, that how important, how critical that's been to you being able to do this and beyond.
yeah. I couldn't do it without that. I couldn't do it without that, and so my wife knew I needed needed a thing. And she also knew that I always was talking about this. I was always thinking about it, talking about it. And so when I started doing it, I think she thought, okay, well, this is going to be a hobby. He's going to do it twice a week, 3 times a week, and then it became something more than that.
Mhm.
Um, and then we had at one point we had a long talk, and she's like, all right, you're going to do it 5 times a week, but you're going to commit this much time to me. And
Mhm.
I said, well, let's make this, in some ways our thing that we do together.
Mhm.
Um, and so she's been very supportive of that, but I couldn't do it if she didn't support it. I don't know exactly how I would do it. I don't think I'd be able to do it at the level and the pace that I'm doing it now. Because you're right. It's a you see kids. It's easier for a kid to do it, I think.
Mhm.
If you're 22, you don't have responsibilities. Um, you don't have a wife, you don't have any kids. It's easier to do it. Um, but on the other hand, it's easier to do it if you have military retirement, frankly, you know,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of money in these things. And
Right.
so
Right.
when you're at my level, I'm not at Dwayne's level, but when you're at my level, everything is about the grind. Going into
Yep.
Boston, meeting the new comics, meeting the bookers, meeting producers, going
Mhm.
out and doing shows. I did shows and I did a week. Yeah, I did a week in Jacksonville, North Carolina. It was the value in that was just other people are going to see me.
Mhm.
I go to New York City once a month. The value in that is other people there are going to see me.
Mhm.
So it's like get your foot in the door, put yourself in these different camps
Yeah.
and show these people that not only can you be funny, but you have your own lane. Like I have a unique perspective that I don't think there's not any comics that I know that have done 30 years in the army and work on Fox News, right? So that's a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
specific lane.
Right.
Um, so you know, having a military retirement is has been critical for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about, so you said you have a certain lane that you operate in, but as far as where you work, do you kind of go anywhere? Because I know there's all kinds of comedy circuits, right? You got the black
Yeah.
circuit, what they call the Chitlin circuit. You got,
Yeah.
cruise line. I mean, there's all kinds of different avenues. Is there a particular area you want to focus on, or are you willing to go everywhere? Like you said, the grind that you talked about, you want to be in as many places. University, there's a college university circuit as well. Do you want to find yourself in all kinds of different places, or you feel comfortable in particular venues?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I used to do private shows. I used to do 2 to 4 private shows every month. I stopped doing that.
Mhm.
The reason I stopped doing that is like nobody sees you except the people who are paying you to do
Right.
the private show.
Right.
Private shows pay well, but there's no benefit for me. There's no other Instagram followers for me. There's no bookers there. There's no so I stopped doing that. I don't think I would do cruise ships because again, nobody sees you. You're out of the circuit for
Yeah.
however long you're on the ship.
Yeah.
Um, I do. When I get booked on them, I do black rooms. I do well there. I'm doing one next month. I think I'm the only white comic on the show, so it's good. I did one 2 months ago. But I try to stay DC and New York City. I try to do New York City one week a month, and then DC, Northern Virginia the rest of the time.
Yeah. Would you ever do like PA or any other states?
Yeah. I mean, I did 3 shows in Western PA, and I would I plan to go back. I'm working with a booker there who puts me on shows probably once a quarter. He puts me on shows, so I'll keep doing that. Jacksonville, that club I did in Jacksonville, Playhouse Jacksonville, they're going to have me back in February to headline, so I'll do that one. Here in Boston, I tried to lay roots here. So what I'm going to try to do is set up some shows in February, like start in next month. I'm going to start hitting up these bookers and just saying, hey, can I line up like 3 to 5 shows in a weekend?
Right.
Get lay roots here in Boston. So Kansas, I do Wichita, Kansas. I'm going there next week. Yeah. Those shows kind of suck, but
what's been your favorite, like most rewarding venues that you like to get back to? What's some of your favorite places to perform?
Gotham Comedy Club in New York. It's amazing. Gotham Comedy Club is a historic, famous club. I did a show there, and Jim Gaffigan walked in and did like 15 minutes on the show I was on. It was awesome. Gotham is in Chelsea, Manhattan, and it's a big.
I'm just looking it up right now. Like I said, my wife and I, we're trying to get back out into the circuit, like at least once a month. Yeah. Hit a comedy club or something like that. So again, like I said, we got Stress Factory here that's closest to us, but we'll go to like Pack Center in Newark and whatnot. We go to several different places. Atlantic City we've been to a few times. So we're definitely trying to get back in this grind. So I'm definitely looking that up, and hopefully we can certainly make a trip there. But
November 17th, I'm going to be there.
November 17th. Okay, I'll mark that in my calendar. Then thanks for giving that out. We also got certainly from our chat. We want to appreciate the chat that's been with us all night. My man Anton in the chat who dropped a $10 super chat to the channel. Salute to the military spouses who support the warriors for performing the duty. The toughest job isn't serving in the military; it's being married to someone who is serving. So again, shout out to you for that. I got Sean Bolden, who's also in the building tonight. Appreciate you being here. So. Sean, he worked. I think he's out of L.A. So have you worked L.A. yet? Have you been West Coast?
No, I've never been to L.A. I probably wouldn't go to L.A. I'd have to really be ready. I hear it's like a very saturated scene. I hear it's a tough scene to break into. So I'd have to have another like 5 years under me before I did that.
Yeah. And he's saying that LA tends to be a liberal type of area. But from what I saw your comedy, I don't think you go one way or the other. I mean, I think you kind of shoot it straight. I love the line you say. It's like, look, I'm not a conservative, but basically, if you want me to be one, I'll be one for the show. I'll be anything you want me to be.
I voted every way you voted. Yeah.
You just you just kind of shoot it straight, which I think we need more of that.
And I agree 100%. In everything, shoot from the hip. Yeah, you shoot from the hip, you can't go wrong. And brutally, honestly, that's I think what made you successful as you are right now, because you shoot from the hip and you're honest.
And and that I can't tell you how much we need that, not only in everything. I mean, we don't go deep dive into politics or anything like that on the show, but I think just more honest conversation, people being transparent and just telling the truth. I mean, so from your perspective, certainly with your role at what your Fox, what you're able to share from your military background experience, we need more of that in the world, in our comedy and our politics and in everything. So I appreciate what you're bringing certainly to these audiences. And like Sean was saying, don't be swayed one way. If it's liberal, whatever, just if you have an opportunity, just go, because certainly. I think throughout the country, I think that's something that the people are looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to post my Instagram here to the chat. It's not going through for some reason.
I actually already posted it for you earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all
So
right,
you're
thanks.
good there.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're good there. So, again, we want to certainly thank you as we start to wind down the show. We try not
Yeah,
to,
man.
especially when we have guests on. We don't want to belabor because I know you got to get ready for your gigs in Boston. But
Yeah, man.
we want to first of all thank you for coming on with us, and again, keep in touch with us. Keep in touch with Peter. Let us know anything that you're doing, anything that we can promote for you. We really appreciate our vets, and especially those who've been able to again create new careers, new paths, new professions coming out, because we do understand for a lot of our vets, that experience coming out and not having a sense of direction is certainly that a lot of guys have to deal with. And so we want to, we salute the guys who are able to, do a 180 and go in another direction and say that, just because I got out of the military, that doesn't mean I got out of life. And
Yeah,
so
man.
we really respect that.
And I want to give him credit when he says he's a one-man show. He's not joking. When I message on Instagram, I put my phone down on here, ding, I'm like, damn, the fucker's fast. I'm like,
Yeah.
I reply, I put it down, ding. I'm like, damn, he's really fucking fast. I'm like, I'm trying to keep up with you. I thought you had another job or something, or you had a secretary. But when you say you're a one-man army, you're joking about that. The reply was one after the other. I kind of hard time keeping up with you.
It's just me and my wife, man. Yeah.
No, that's a great, it's a beautiful thing you guys have working. Like, if it works for you guys, keep doing it. And like, does she travel with you too?
Was she? Yeah, she didn't come on this one, but she comes on the ones to Manhattan. She came. Oh, she came to the one in North Carolina. So she does about like 60 to 70% of the ones I do on the road. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let me ask you another question now. Back to your military career. Did you ever get a chance to be like in a room with one of the presidents? Did you ever work with those the higher ups? I would say
Trump. Yeah. 2019. Yeah, I went with Mattis to the White House probably 4 times.
How was that experience?
It was wild, man. It was it was wild. I mean, I don't really, he wouldn't want you to talk about it, but it was like it was a very contentious thing, and Mattis was trying to focus the department on the NATO partners and reassure NATO allies, and Trump was trying to go in a different direction. Everything was very contentious, and so what Mattis used to do is he just, we'd go in there, and then we just leave the country. He was always out of the country. He spent like 20 days every month out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't want to be in DC. He put everything on his Deputy Secretary of Defense, Pat Shanahan, who's a great friend of mine and a wonderful, amazing guy still to this day. I talked to him 2 days ago, but he just tried to spend as much time as he could out of the country because he didn't want to have that conflict in DC with Trump. And in DC, everybody loved Mattis, and the reporters loved Mattis, the lobbyists loved Mattis, Congress loved Mattis. And it was kind of, Trump is very sensitive about all this stuff,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it was a really weird, interesting, fascinating thing.
Yeah. Well, certainly as we wind down, anything you want to promote? I know you have you have a website. Also, I think it's joebuccino.com. If I have that,
Yeah,
correct.
just go to the Instagram. Just go to the Instagram.
Go to Instagram. That has everything there. So again, we got the Instagram posted in the chat. But yeah, certainly as I said earlier, can't appreciate you enough for coming on and
before we go,
these stories. But yeah, go ahead, Pete.
We always ask this question. I always have to end the show like this.
What
is the funniest story you can tell us when you were in the service that happened to you?
That's good.
Well, funniest story that ever happened was it's another story about taking a shit, but I got lost in Iraq. Literally got lost in a sandstorm in Iraq, and walked around. And and I walked. I went to go take a shit, and this was when we first crossed the berm, and then I went to walk back to my unit, and we got hit with the sandstorm. I don't know if you remember, the sandstorms were like literally just blinding, like blowing sand at you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I started walking through the sandstorm, and I was supposed to be going east, and I was going north, and I was walking towards an Iraqi artillery battalion, I realized. And then I started going, and then I started going west. I was completely lost, and I was probably lost for about 9 hours. I was lost for 9 hours.
Wow.
And then I just walked into another operation center. I finally found another operation. I saw a light. I saw an IR light, and I was like, okay, that's an American unit. And I walked in there, and I was like, I got lost. And they're like, oh, you were out taking a shit in the sandstorm? I said, yeah, that's what happened. So, so they used a plugger to find my unit, and they drove me to my unit, and it became a well-known story.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you,
I think that beats it though better than our Angry Elf story right now. I think that's the top of
that's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's embarrassing.
I hear you.
So let's start closing up. Anything else you want to plug in, like we said? Anything you want to advertise? Any events coming up soon you want to tell us about?
No, man. I mean, just everything's on my Instagram. I just push that Instagram out at Joe_tells_jokes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep,
I would definitely be pushing that out. Again, thank you so much for coming up. It was a pleasure and an honor having you up here.
Thanks, I had a blast, man. This was a great podcast.
Appreciate you being here,
Thank you,
and pass the word. And again, as I
I will.
always say, when you get really big and play the big houses, don't forget about the little guys. Please come back and see us and let us know what's going on with you. We really appreciate you. Awesome.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah.
Well, again, we want to thank everybody for being a shout out. Again, the chat is undefeated. We appreciate you guys being on with us tonight. Thank you for our man, Lost in Translation, who hopped on into the back and made sure that the show was running. I was struggling to try to get this admin stuff going here, but we got it together. But and my man Anton, again, $5 super chat. Again, forgot to pack your compass and map to go to the latrine. My man Anton, he was in the military as well, so he's been relating to certainly a lot of what you've been saying tonight. So, but Anton, he's a great supporter of the channel, and we appreciate him. Yes, we appreciate him always being here. And again, I got Sean. Again, he's trying to get you to the LA. So again, he works in the entertainment industry as well. So definitely, hopefully you can make that happen. But we just appreciate you guys for being with us. My Steelers, you put the kibosh on it, Joe, because again, we were up. Now we're down 10 points in the fourth quarter.
Oh,
like
shit.
I said, it's been bad, man. So,
okay, I gotta watch the rest of this game.
Yeah, so it's like I try to keep my stress levels low here, so it's not looking good for us right now. But for everyone else who's in the chat tonight, certainly enjoy the rest of your week. And so we see next time for myself, Mr. Bennett, for the Sparta.
This is Sparta!
And for Joe Buccino, veteran.
Much love, guys.
Husband, father, comedian.
Yeah.
Here on the Black Men Unfiltered Network, simulcasting on Sparta HQ Network. You guys have a great night. Joe, take care. God bless.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you guys next time. Take care. Good night.
See you. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Great job. Loved it. I'm gonna roll, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Man, that was a good one. That was I don't think we've had a guest that such a diverse life and whatnot. But again, that's why I love having the soldiers on, because I mean,
I do too. Like I said earlier, dude. Like I'm not even joking. When I emailed them, it was in my outside of my office. So I start going through my list from Comic-Con. I'm emailing people. Boom, boom. I put it down. I literally take 1, 2, something. I'm like, fuck, that was fast. I answered.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I put it down. One thing. Damn, the fucker's fast. I'm thinking to myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with him.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, when you get big and you get managers, you got to go through layers of people and whatnot, and so I love seeing guys on the come up, because who knows, when he's playing Madison Square Garden and whatnot, we could say we had him on here, and
well, I can safely say we have about 2 or 3 more guests booked in
Yes.
I only said 2 or 3 because it depends on schedule. I'll talk to BMU on that later on, but I'm working my ass off, guys. Let's put it this way: I am working my ass off. Paul can vouch how much I work my ass off.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's
He's a great guy.
Yeah, 100%. And the guys we've had on, shout out to CQ. I mean, CQ kind of got all this started by hooking us up with Dwayne White, and then Dwayne White from here we got this contact here. So we're gonna continue to bring you great content. We want to have a mix every week. So again, obviously we have on Gray Area. We have topics that we cover. We have Q&A for you guys to call in if you guys want to be a part of the conversation.
You know what I'm gonna
and
do?
then we'll be doing interviews. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw CQ's channel in the chats. So there's a little thank you. Who has not prescribed to CQ, definitely do it. So definitely subscribe to his channel if you haven't. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think we can wrap this one, guys. So again, Lost, certainly in the back. We're gonna close this show out. Again, appreciate you guys. See us next week on another edition of the Gray Area. Again, take care. God bless. And we will see you next time. Good night. We're waiting for the end. I'm gonna hang in here.
This is usually Paul's problem.
I know, because they move the end video around a lot, so it's not quite always set up when you hit the end link on the show. But Lost, if you're back there, you can certainly end the show, or we just gonna we could just sort of sign off, and then they'll cut it down, they'll edit, they'll do what they need to do. But we kept the show under an hour 50, so you guys should be able to take hopefully some shorts and run with this, and certainly post some content on the channel, and hopefully by next week we'll have all the technical issues certainly worked out. But with that, Pete, I'm going to sign off, and
same here.
I'll talk to you during the week.
Definitely.
Good night.